So I would like to ask all of you now to take your seats. We don't have much time, as our Minister of Finance is offering us 30 minutes, so we should keep this straightforward and short. We're delighted to welcome all of you here to this spotlight interview entitled Europe at the Crossroads. We're honored to welcome Minister of Finance Wolfgang Schäuble at the Berlin Foreign Policy Forum. The crisis of Europe has been addressed many times this morning. Wolfgang Schäuble has been a supporter of the European idea and European integration since the early days of his political career. As the EU fails to stand united and populism is on the rise, we want to ask, what is your vision of the future of Europe and what should the German role look like? We're delighted to also welcome Britta Sandberg, who's the head of the Foreign Policy Department at Der Spiegel in Hamburg. She will lead the conversation with the minister, and I would like to ask both of you now to join me here on stage. Thank you very much.
Ja, so ist das.
So there you are again. Isn't that nice? Minister, I'm going to stretch your memory. So what did you know what you did 23rd to 24th of June this year? You know, June. Yes, I slept 23rd to 24th of June because I know what the result of the referendum would be, or that it would only come in the morning. I'd say I'll expect it when I'm had a good night's sleep. So how do you wake up with the result? Well, I remember that a few weeks before in London, when I was asked what I would do if the Brits decided as they did, and most didn't expect that apart from me. I said I would cry, and then I thought, no, I'm not going to cry now, but it was similar, the feeling, because I thought it was it's a decision that makes you sad. Right, so how would you see it from today's point of view? How great is the loss? Well, we don't know that yet, do we? So meanwhile, the Brits are more involved and busy with thinking about what they actually did. And because the Brits are what they are and how they are, it's such a pity when they leave the EU. Well, we just have to see what conclusions they're going to draw. So I talked to my British colleague, a few times over. So we meet frequent enough to talk about what we can contribute to limiting the damage for Europe and the UK. But he always explained what is non-negotiable for Britain. And the third time around, I said to him, well, maybe it would be quite good if you could imagine how you want to have it. Because there is no menu where you can actually choose from what you want to have or not. European Union is not a menu. It's going to tear apart otherwise. So you were for a harder line before the Brexit was there, like in is in and out is out. No. So no. People convinced me. So my British colleague George Osborne convinced me to join in the efforts to achieve a different outcome of the referendum. I said to him before whether that is a clever idea when there is a German and explains to you Brits what to vote for. No, you're very respected in Britain, etc., etc. He said to me, okay, do it. So I said, yep, okay, I'll do it. You were able to say it, and I did it. So there I asked him, how am I supposed to behave? And he said to me, you have to say clearly, yes is a yes, and a no is no. And because my English is limited, I mean, it's okay, but it's limited, I said, yes is a yes and no is a no. But I wasn't very brutal or anything like that. No, like the Chancellor. I was among those who said no after the referendum. It's not about punishing the UK. I mean, they're inflicting self-damage as it is. No, we should try to avoid damage. We need a strong UK. A strong UK is better than a weak UK, and the closer the UK is connected, the better it is. London is going to remain an important financial market, and it is in our interest as well as in the interest of the UK. However, we cannot take that decision from the Brits. They want to decide for themselves. They have to decide whether they want to think about it again, under what conditions. But as long as they say the migration point was the hardest point in that campaign, then I have to say, well, the 4 basic freedoms are not negotiable in Europe, because if and when Europe starts to negotiate the 4 basic freedoms away, then we're not going to be the European Union anymore. There's no leeway there. Anything else? Okay. So, but you're not going to find the compromise by saying, the one saying you have to be flexible, and if you're just flexible enough, you have to be more creative. Well, you can say that in Germany between the national government and the federal state governments, but not in Europe. Okay, let's move on in the year. How did you feel on the morning of the 10th of November? Well, what was the 10th of November? After the election outcome in the States. Well, didn't they vote on the 8th? On the 9th? Did they have the election on the 9th? I thought it was the 8th. Anyway, the 8th, wasn't it? Yes, there he is. Alex is my friend. He's with me on this one. Right. Okay. The 9th of November. The 9th of November is a day that I've got my German history. And, okay. So we looked at the election results. We only got them throughout the 9th of November. Okay, how did I feel? Well, you have to think about, well, many of you don't understand German, right? So what shall I, so what I'm going to say now, you can only say that in Swabian or the Badian, but okay. It is what it is. It is what it is. So that's the prerequisite of politics. To accept reality. That reality is reality. So it is what it is. So, but okay. Then also the consideration, my God, what's going to happen? So, well, we're still in that position when we pursue or follow Twitter. I don't actually do that, but sometimes people make me read Twitter messages. Anyway, right, later on in this event, we're also going to discuss the election outcome and the situation in the United States and possible new American foreign policy. What could you or would you say at this point in time? What is going to change with the election of Trump for Europe already today? Well, with the elections, with the last elections in the United States, for us Europeans, it has become even clearer what is not new. So, I've been in this business for quite some time, and I'm relatively old myself and a political animal. And I remember that President Kennedy demanded a greater contribution of the Europeans in the shared responsibility. And over the decades, this actually continued continually. So we Europeans always didn't take it so seriously. So we felt quite happy with the mix, like we Germans anyway, especially. And on the one hand, we could trust that the United States of America will sort it out, and on the other hand, that all of our concerns, our sensitivities, and our better knowledge of what is not right. So with determined and demonstration against the United States of America. So our democratic maturity was displayed. So free trade zone between Lisbon and Vladivostok was regarded as a big promise. I think in all surveys, and Körber-Stiftung could do that, you'll have 80% or more agreement. Free trade zone between Europe and North America, however, is a disaster suddenly. So in all surveys and polls, and this just shows a shift of the yardstick, and now we just have to become more reasonable. On the one hand, we will be able to say we trust that the United States of America are going to master the things they have to master to the best of their abilities, and we have to undertake more efforts to improve what we can improve. We Germans as well as we Europeans. We have to improve. So this also means more responsibility with foreign and security policy, like the Americans have been demanding for a long time. And there have been voices in Germany for some years too demanding this. Foreign Minister Steinmeier this morning also said that people in Europe expect us to deliver. And then he said we need clearer security policy structures and contours. Yeah, that's very good. I mean, you know, at the beginning of this legislative period, it was only the finance minister who actually called for a slight increase in the defense spending, and so that is a change in the normal expectations, you say. So Mr. Steinmeier is still a member of the Social Democratic Party. Possibly he's going to put his membership to rest, but as long as he's a member of the Social Democratic Party of Germany, of course he will have to listen to my questions. What about the approval of my highly esteemed coalition partner for more expenditure for security? Right, there's a survey that the Körber-Stiftung commissioned, and the question is Germany to take over or should extend its leadership role in the EU? 59% would say yes, 40% rather no. And 78%, however, also say only within the framework of a common European foreign policy, Germany can actually represent its interest on an international scene. That's a good finding, I think, that the large majority of our people have got reasonable views. Because a leadership role, in the narrow sense of the word, we have to be cautious. Of course, we've got a responsibility of leadership. We are the largest country. We're still, and we're in the center of Europe. And at the moment, we've got the best economic situation, and thus the greatest scope of action. So, after Luxembourg, we've got the lowest ratio of defense expenditure in NATO. I mean, that is the point where I said, okay, now it's not, so we're not compensated with higher rota quote than the UK. I mean, we also increased that in this legislative period as well. But with regard to our readiness to take over foreign policy responsibility, and not just to demand it from others, but within the framework of our limited and also double limited by history, it is the case that we can take on more responsibility. But we can only do that. So that's why I would say about the German leadership role. We do have a special responsibility in Europe and for Europe. But above all, we Germans need to know. So 78% of these people in the poll said so. We've got a good future only when Europe is a success. If we are committed to Europe. So it's not just out of solidarity or whatever. No, it is in our self-understood interest. So Europe, in this globalized world, is going to have to make a greater contribution to prevent the world from falling apart even more. And Germany has to do it in its own interest. And Germany can do it better in and with Europe. And of course, sure, also accept leadership responsibility. Absolutely.
At the moment, the situation is not so positive in Europe. Well, at least better than in the US. In many European countries, including Germany, we have populist movements. In Austria, next weekend, Norbert Hofer from FPÖ could become federal president. We're not so sure whether the envelopes will really hold when election day comes. Well, we'll still have a trump card. No, of course I'm not serious. It's a very sad topic. You have to have some fun. In Italy, Matteo Renzo, with the constitutional referendum, will have to face his political destiny, and we do not know what the result will be. And also, there will be elections next year in France, and we do not know who is going to become president. How about Europe? Is it facing its largest test ever since Europe got together? Well, whether it's the biggest test, well, of course, you always tend to say it's the biggest test when you're faced with something, but it's okay for us as Europeans to have to sort out things. The Austrians will manage their own process. Renzi is carrying out a constitutional reform, at least he's trying to do that, and I really respect that. He said, if I remember correctly, if this referendum fails, he would resign, but he didn't say that he would completely leave politics. So his political destiny, let's wait and see. I hope very much that he'll be successful. If I could take a vote in Italy, I would definitely support him, although he's not part of my political family, but he has undertaken many reforms, and he's confident that he can take the measures that are so essential for Italy. So I wish him a lot of success, and even though the referendum might fail, we do not know. I know about the opinion polls. Even if he fails, he will continue to try and move things forward. But since you mentioned France here, allow me to say that we Germans sometimes believe that we know things best. But I think France, on 2 occasions, has deserved the respect of Germany. And part of the French electorate, obviously the people who supported the socialists in the second round, they have delivered a very good result. And the Republican Party, for the first time, has conducted a true primary. They had no experience doing that, and you couldn't vote in writing, so you didn't need to seal your envelopes. Everyone had to turn out and go to the election precincts, and over 4 million people really went on 2 occasions. So these are people who have political clarity, and that is why I'm not as skeptical as many other people are in Germany. But I also must say, maybe I'm a bit prejudiced because my region borders on France. And so people are really willing and ready to participate in political debates. And I hope we would have the same in Germany. But of course, I'm an optimist. And being here at Körber Foundation, you have to be optimist. Politicians must be optimists. Otherwise, they will end up being depressed. If François Fillon wins the election, you will have as a partner a very conservative person who is very skeptical of Europe, who considers European unity as something that should be stopped now. Or you will have a president that does not want to have the euro anymore and even wants to leave the EU. But you also have the Socialist Party. And it still exists, although you declare it non-existence. I'm currently following a debate within the Socialist Party of France. It's as active as the discussion we had about our candidate for president. Mr. Valls has made statements, and others have said, well, he would have to resign, as Prime Minister Emmanuel Macron has already said he would run for president. So let's wait and see who gets into the second round. I hope that Mrs. Le Pen will never be the president of France, to put that quite clearly. And besides, I'm confident that at the end of the day, the French will take a good choice. As far as François Fillon is concerned, I know him ever since he was Prime Minister. We have worked together, and he also came to see me in the Ministry of Finance in Berlin at times when he was not minister. And of course, his opinion is very much different from mine, but he's got a program that is very plausible regarding the question of how can France really use its potential, because it's really a pity that such a big and strong country, such a grand nation with so many advantages, should not use its full potential. I will never forget that our colleagues in the cabinet, when the Germanwings plane crashed, how they traveled to France. And they were very much impressed by the smooth functioning of the rescue services in this mountain area. My German colleagues said, well, I don't know whether Germany could be as efficient as they were. And the people living in that area were so full of solidarity and helped a great deal. I mean, what the French are going to elect, that's their own affair, and we will wait and see. I can see you're very optimistic today. Yes, because there's this imminent danger of depression. You're one of the most convinced Europeans that we have in Germany. Basically, you should feel very sad when you look at events today. And like many others, you should probably ask the question, what did we overlook? What are the mistakes that we made? What were the things we simply didn't see? I mean, that's a question I find very difficult to answer in a nutshell. First of all, we have to think about what we have achieved because of European unity. It was really hard to imagine that after all the disasters of the first half of the 20th century, we would step by step develop such a body. And then a wall came down in Berlin and an Iron Curtain came down in Europe. And success is always something that is a strain on social communities. And maybe they have a certain degree of fatigue. Coming back to Mr. Fillon, and you said he's skeptical about Europe. He is rather skeptical regarding the transfer of competences to the EU. Well, you must understand that the first attempt of a political union failed in 1954 in the Assemblée Générale. And it's also quite understandable that Bundestag, the German parliament at the time, supported the EU. I mean, giving up national sovereignty and competences to the EU, maybe we've underestimated the logical reluctance. And we have embarked on an ever closer union path. We have said we will have European unity wherever possible, and where it's not possible yet, we do it later. I mean, classical example is the monetary union. Basically, we should have achieved a financial union first, but we said, okay, then let's start with the monetary union. Let's create a stability pact, and hopefully one day we'll be able to have a financial union. Now, the German Minister of Finance says, we've got a stability pact. What have we got it for? We want to make it compulsory. And others say, no, we don't. And so there is this model and this certain degree of fatigue that has developed over time. And there's one more thing we have underestimated. You know, when we think of Germany, we had 40 years of separation on the basis of a wall and Iron Curtain. not just economically, but also mental division was there. And we have underestimated the difficulties we would have inside Germany after unification. And as we can see now, we've got Poland, we've got Hungary, we've got other countries in Europe and also on a global scale. Now, I'm convinced even if things go wrong, I can show you the risks that we have. Referendum in Italy, Netherlands, you forgot to mention that one. And even if things fall completely apart, the next day people would be trying again to unite Europe because it's so logical to do that. There's this intrinsic logic of European unity. And so I do not despair. I think we will manage. Maybe we will get in even more troubled waters, but we will always have an opportunity to control the processes. And step by step, we are going to move on. Europe, at the moment, given the structures that we have, is very slow. We saw it last year, where it was our task to combine European values with European realities, helping, and the border issue, helping people and European reality had to be reconciled. And the reality was that we cannot come to terms with everything. Now we will have to do more for security, be more active in our neighborhood. We are already active in the Ukraine, at least France and Germany. Chancellor Merkel and President Hollande have started the Normandy process and have made a start. Of course, it would be good to have a stronger American commitment. But if the Americans one day take a decision to be less active, we will still have to go on. We will have to talk to Mr. Putin. We will have to talk and cooperate with Mr. Erdogan and their potential successors. And we will do that. And we will always see and learn that it's better to be united than do everything in an isolated way. We have nearly reached the end of our debate. Let me ask the following question. If the explanation of Europe being a conclusion of the past is no longer enough, and people always say that people are tired of all the globalization processes and all the changes, what do we have to do? You mentioned a number of aspects already, but what could be the new motivation to bring people closer to Europe? And how could we achieve a decrease of populist tendencies? Well, the future. Of course, I think of the past when I think of Europe, but my grandchildren don't. They say, yeah, it's like Napoleon. There used to be a war, but that was a long time ago. But when I look at the world we have today, look at Aleppo. What's the name of this refugee camp in Kenya? Oh, climate change. Many other issues. When we look at that, and when we look at demographic developments, we have facts and figures regarding demographic development trends. When we think of what our idea of a good lifestyle is, and we see the Americans, we see how they make mistakes sometimes, and when we think about all of that and think about what we can do now, then we'll understand we cannot just withdraw from the world at large and live on our island in splendid isolation. So we will have to shape the world, and we as Europeans can only do that together, or we cannot do it. By the way, if we work together, we will be attractive, not just within Europe, but our attractiveness will be known all across the world. You can learn that when you're Minister of Finance. In many parts of the world, people look at Europe. Take Latin America, Southeast Asia. They all look at Europe. They know about the problems that we have, but still, they think they have to somehow solve their own problems in a similar way, maybe better than we as Europeans. But the first who tried to get together were Europeans.
So sometimes I've got hard discussions with IFC and the G20. I said, I know that you think Europe is totally inefficient and slow and so on and so forth. I said, I know that, and I understand what you're saying. But I can only say, have you got a better model how 28 sovereign nations come together in a new common union? If you know, and if you have that model, let me know, and we'll copy that. And if not, don't criticize us only. Why don't you do it as good as we do, at least? So, you remain a convinced European? Yes, and optimistic. Mr. Schäuble, thank you very much for coming.